Welcome to our Good South event. Business can be a force for good. And we are here today to hear the story. And it's an exciting story because stories reach the heart. And this is the success story of Harmonica Foods. And we are hopefully getting motivated to take a purposeful step at the end of this event. We live in very turbulent times amidst climate crisis, human crisis, expressed in conflicts, wars, and this may feel really daunting and hopeless. There is hope, and there is a pathway to live and lead in a way that brings positive impact to the world. How does this look like? Today, we'll hear about this positive way of leading a business to become a force for good from our special guests, Ljubomir Noku, who is co-founder and CEO at Harmonica Foods. Nico Gemio, sorry if I haven't pronounced your surname well, from BLab Europe, who is in charge of business development, our region, our part of the world, Southeastern Europe, and Magdalena Maleva, who is founder and director of Wind of Change, and she has many more participations in purposeful organizations, but for the purpose of the event, I'll mention just Wind of Change. So before I give the word to Nico, I would like to share who are the Good South community. Luke, can you share the first slide, please? Thank you. So we, Luana, Irina, and I, initiated and launched the Good South community on the 30th of September last year, because we felt there is a need to co-create a space where purpose-led and purpose-curious leaders, entrepreneurs, and humans come together, connect in a meaningful way, and start purposeful collaborations that positively impact the world. Our vision, next slide, please, is to be the go-to community for good in Southeastern Europe. And we want to create awareness, inspire, and support organizations who want to embark on the B Corp journey. Today, as you can see, in the region of Southeastern Europe, there are only 11 B-certified corporations. We heard from Ljubo that there are a few companies in Bulgaria that are in the process of certification, and we aspire to have 500 by the end of 2030. It's a big vision, and we need you all to support us and spread the word and embark on that journey if you choose to. Our community supports and organizes its activities to bring to the fore the B movement, the inner development goals, and the sustainable development goals. Today, we want to showcase through the story of Harmonica that there is a way to balance people, planet, and profit, supported by Wind of Change, and we'll also learn about the vision of BLab and the global cultural shift. So please, if you have any questions that come in your mind during our communication, presentation, and dialogue today, put them in the chat box and we'll answer your questions at the end of our session today. Thank you so much. And I will first hand over to Nico from BLab Europe. Next slide, please.
Thank you for that introduction, Elena, and thank you very much for allowing me to be here. I feel very excited and grateful to be part of this story that you're starting together and this history, really, because I think that looking back, what you're doing here will be very meaningful down the line, and it will be remembered. So I'm very grateful to be here with you. The reason why I'm here is also because I work for BLab, this nonprofit that has a very similar vision, really, and goals as the Good South community. BLab is an international nonprofit started in 2006. And in summary, its vision is that of an inclusive, equitable, and regenerative economic system for all people on the planet. So a very, very ambitious vision. Some would say utopian, but I can assure you that we are slowly, steadily getting there. And part of that is thanks to pioneers like you. So I'll just share in a couple of minutes why we do what we do and how we do it and how we can perhaps support the Good South. Next slide, please. So BLab started, as I said, in 2006 after 3 entrepreneurs started a retail company that was actually competitor to Nike. It was a clothing brand, and it grew a lot. It scaled, and I think around 2002 or 2004, they actually sold it to investors. And what they saw, to their surprise, was that within a matter of months, all the good practices and the exemplary behavior and good policies that they have put in the company evaporated. When the ownership changed, all the good practices disappeared. And as you can imagine, they were very upset about that. And so they were thinking how to prevent other entrepreneurs from going through the process in the future. And in the end, they came to the conclusion of creating a nonprofit that would develop sustainability standards and that would somehow lock the mission or help lock the mission of purpose-driven companies for others. And they did so, and the organization grew and grew. And we think that this happened in the middle of what we believe is a historic global culture shift, in which businesses and business leaders like you as well here today are realizing that they have finally the leverage to directly address some of society's greatest challenges. Next slide. Thank you. And just for context, how some people see this transition or this historic change is a transition from a form of capitalism that flourished in the last century, where the value generated was exclusive to the shareholders or to the owners of the company. It could be prioritized for the short term, so owners could cash in anytime they want, so to speak. And it was often, and unfortunately we still see that today, extractive of the natural and social ecosystems where economic activity took place. Luckily, we think, and some of you would probably agree, and we see, also the public and the markets demanding this transition to a stakeholder form of capitalism where the value generated is shared more inclusively, it's for the long term, and it's more regenerative. So that's what I think we're going through now, and what we're trying to make the most out of and also accelerate. Next slide, please. And next slide. Yes, so as I said, the moment we're a network of nonprofit organizations, actually B-Lab across different continents. We're almost 500 employees in total, which is quite a lot considering how all of this started. And regarding certified B Corps, which is part of what we do, helping companies achieve certification, there are 6,700 of these companies certified globally. Next slide. Yeah, and just to summarize what we do as an organization, and again, the only reason why I'm explaining is because I think it's closely aligned with the Good South, and I think there will be a very interesting kind of collaboration coming up. But as said, what we do to achieve that vision, the first thing is to drive the adoption of the standards, these sustainability standards that have been developed since 2006. They change every 3 years. We update them. We go through public consultations where we ask B Corps, certified B Corps, but also any other companies, academia, we ask them for feedback. And we develop these standards constantly, which are in the assessment, which I will talk about in a moment. The other thing that we do is certify companies, again, for those that want to have their impact verified by a third party. The third thing that we do and that we hire people for, so that we put resources into, is simply broadcasting business as a force for good. So creating comms, spreading the word about what purpose-driven companies are doing. And the two other things that we do is trying to influence policy. So trying to change the rules of the game so that hopefully one day all business has to be a force for good. It's not just something optional. And I can also say that we are slowly getting there. And we also put a lot of energy into simply developing a network of communities for change. And we're very proud about that. Next slide, please. So in practice, for the adoption of the standards, one thing that I want you to recommend to check out if you haven't done that before is the B Impact Assessment, which is an online tool that is completely free, and I think it will always be free, where companies can go through a questionnaire and answer around 200 questions to measure their impact on their internal governance, on the community, workers, environment, and customers. So it's a very interactive tool that will give you a lot of inspiration for things that you can do better in your businesses and in your organizations more broadly. And I'm sharing in the chat the link to the tool. Next slide, please. In summary, because we have so many buzzwords now in the sustainability world, for those of you who are new to B Lab or B Corp, in summary, what B Corp is most importantly, I would say, the assessment, the online tool that I just shared on the chat, the certification, and there it says on the screen, recognize top performers, because it's companies that want to show to the outside world that what they measured and improved on is actually real, it's verified. Then legal change, so the kind of effort that we're doing internationally, and not just B Lab, but really many other entrepreneurs and organizations to try to change national laws so that we recognize and give more visibility to purpose-driven companies. And the other thing that that B Corp is just the collective leadership and collective innovation and all the wonderful business opportunities that also come up in the process when companies with a similar vision come together. Next slide. And I think that's all from my side. I want to finish just saying, hope that you get the message by the end of today's session that the B Corp community is good company to keep. I would like to share also on the chat the access to the B Corp public directory, where you can see in the Southeast Europe region who are exactly these 11 companies that achieved B Corp certification. And yeah, with that, I'm again very grateful to be here. I'm very excited to hear from others, and also I'm really dying to go back to my colleagues here in Amsterdam and tell them about what's going on in Bulgaria and Southeast Europe. So thank you for that. Over to you, Elena.
Thank you so much, Nico, for the inspiration and for your support of our region. I would like hand over to Luana, my co-pilot, and she'll start the dialogue with Lubo, who is going to share his exciting story with us.
Yes, thanks a lot, Elena. Thanks a lot. So yeah, it's super interesting, Nico. Thanks a lot for sharing. And then again, a very warm welcome also to Harmonica, to Lubo, to Maggie, who have, Harmonica is one of the B Corp certified organizations. So, and we are very curious to ask questions on how was your journey and how you did that. So maybe, Lubo, if you want to introduce yourself very shortly, and then I would come back to you with a couple of questions that I have.
Thanks. So my name is Lubo, in short. I'm one of the founders and the CEO at the moment of Harmonica. Harmonica is a company that started in 2006, 2008 with one yogurt, with the first organic product in Bulgaria. And then after 2013, 2015, we started developing a big portfolio of many different foods. As we, at the beginning, our motivation was just to help the first two cow farmers, organic cow farmers in Bulgaria. Then we wanted to have this food available, as there was not much food choices in Bulgaria at that time. And then we saw that most of the challenges that we are facing, social, economic, climate, biodiversity, everything is connected to one thing. They have one thing in common, and it's the food and agriculture. So we saw that we have this mission to be to give good examples so that other businesses can follow and show that it is possible to work in a responsible way and create good products for food in the food industry. So this has been our goal since for that many years. And to go on the B Corp story, it in a way it started at the very beginning, because when we started, we didn't start as a business. We started just as an organization to support these first few farms, and then we had to organize logistics. We had to organize a sales team, and one step by step it became it apparent that the best way to organize this was as a business structure, as a company, and this is how it became a business. And then we were looking for examples and find other stories of companies that are doing something similar, because in our environment, we only saw corporations going hard for profit and doing a lot of damage in the environment, on the ecosystems. And I started looking for companies around the world to find a good example and a story that will help us grow, or at least something that will tell us that we're not totally mistaken, that we're doing something that is possible. And so I found the story of Patagonia, and this is the time when Yvonne Chouinard published the first book, which is called Let My People Go Surf. So I read the book, I started talking about it to everyone. We published the book and eventually sold, I think, 2,000 copies in Bulgarian. And this was a way to get to know the people at Patagonia. And then we published the second book and got a call from the vice president of Patagonia, who was traveling to Europe with his wife. And they came to Sofia. We made a presentation of the book. And he stayed for a few days and invited us to go and visit them. And this took a lot of time, probably 4 years. We hesitated and we thought, oh, come on. We're a small Sofia yogurt company. Why should we go to California? That's so many emissions. But finally, in 2018, we visited them. And this is probably the first time we started talking about B Corp. And I think their idea of B Corp, Patagonia is one of the founding companies, right? Their idea was to create a way in which you can guarantee the values of a company through different challenges, through different crises which are happening, and through change of ownership, I think. I think this is our reason to do it, because we really wanted to preserve the original values of the company and the way we work through the growth of the company, through we've had every year a different crisis. In the last few years, we had the pandemic, inflation, the war, everything. And it's sometimes it's very difficult to stick to your values. But so B Corp is this. It's the for me as a founder, it was the best decision, because this gave us the instrument to preserve the values through all these different challenges.
Thank you.
So we started in 2018, but it took us quite a few years because of the pandemic, because of different other things we had to fix. For us, it was more, we didn't have to change much in the company, because these were things we were doing beforehand. So the things that we really wanted to, we had to do was to organize, write everything down, communicate much more than change the process or change our product philosophy or anything else. And I really like the word using the business as a force for good, because this is the way we started. We wanted to do something good using the business frame. And now, for example, we have this project. It's a river cleaning project in Bulgaria. There is a big problem with the rivers. There is so much pollution because the garbage collection in many of the small cities is very badly organized, and most of the garbage goes into the rivers. So we started a project called Clean Struma River, and we this year we won a lot of awards for this. And I don't think we are doing something much. It's like one of the rivers. There is so much, much bigger challenges, a lot of other problems in Bulgaria, a lot of things that people can fix. But our way of working and this mentality to use the business and not to use the river for the business is, I think, the thing that changed everything, because some people will say you're using the cleaning of the river for your marketing, but it's the opposite. We're using our marketing for the river. So I think this is the mentality that B Corp represents. And last year I think we removed 2,000 tons of garbage using our business, not the opposite.
That's impressive. Thanks a lot, Lubo, for sharing.
I think I replied many questions at once.
Yeah, well, this is perfect, right? I mean, how it's really inspiring. How did you? And I understand it was a longer process. How did you get the employees inspired for that? You know, I think you're creating a culture around this. So how could you make sure that you have employees inspired and with you in the boat?
We are not a big team. We are not a very big company. We are probably 50 people. So, and these values, they have always been with the company. You can, probably in product design or decisions we make about logistics or clients or most of the things, it's the way we have worked. For most of my colleagues, this was not a change. This was not a big change. It was something that was always there. So I guess in bigger corporations, the challenge is much tougher. For us, it was a nature way. So it was mostly organizing some processes and describing some of the things we did before that were organic and not this. So this, for us, this was not a big challenge. We've always done. Had these 5 pillars of the impact areas of B Corp. We have always worked on them. So I guess for Harmonica, this was easy.
Yeah, I think there's a link to the values, right? And then when you hire people anyway, you make sure that they are connected to the company culture and the values of the organization. So it's a natural fit. That's what yeah.
Well, values, they have to be practiced. Otherwise, people will read them but don't believe them. So many people will come to the company and will be, especially people coming from corporations, they are not used to our way of working and they get a little confused at the beginning. They are not used to a real value work. So we have a description, but the best way to do it is to have it really inside the culture. And our advantage is that we haven't worked in another way ever.
So it's part of the onboarding, I guess, no? How you bring people on board and new joiners to be sure basically they understand how you work and practice this as of the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah, super. No, I don't want to take all the space. I'm sure that Ellie has a few questions as well. So I let you ask and play out your curiosity, Ellie.
Thank you so much, Luana. Yeah, I heard that your business is intrinsically good at the very start from your story. And I'm much more curious because I knew part of the story, but now I'm curious about the B Corp certification itself. As a process. You mentioned that you had many of the things in place and especially your impact model, but what else did you need to do in order for you to align the company with the B Lab standards?
The thing that we had to do was a lot of paperwork, and we had to really the things we have, because we're a small company that has grown fast for the last years, and we were moving without having all the things put on paper and organized. So what we did was to do all the administrative work, especially with the suppliers. This was probably the biggest challenge. because we've made these choices and had this information, but we never did it in a proper process. It was just a quick way of growing. We have actually, being in the European Union is very helpful for the B Corp because, for example, we got a lot of points for giving 12 months maternity leave for all the people in the company, which is by law here. And in the US, it's not like this. So we get a lot of extra points just for this. So many of the things we were required there, being in the EU, is an advantage that they come automatically. Working with the suppliers is a big challenge because most of them don't have the data. Most of them we know and we respect and we think they have the proper values, but we don't have anything to prove it. Working with our environmental impact, this is something else we had to do. We had to start measuring it year over year and decide what measures we use. So for this we used this French system, carbon balance. So we started doing all the measurements, which took probably also a lot of time. And then we needed also to prove that we have some kind of influence and that we have an impact on the communities. And this was more difficult to do because we have never really cared about awards and I know that Harmonica is a well-known brand, and I guess it has a good reputation, but proving it to the audit was a challenge. So we had to find ways to show that this is true. Finally, we found a few reports from the science community that had studied Harmonica's impact, which was very helpful.
Oh, that's very interesting. That's impressive. And overall, how long did it take the certification process for you? The preparation phase to get to the points. I know that you have much more points than the minimum of 80 points. To my memory, it was 103. I think we had
104, which
I was
very surprised. Our goal was to pass 80.
Yes, which is the threshold. So how long did it take, the alignment process and then the process to really obtain the B Corp certification?
It took us, I think, overall 3 years, 2 years to prepare everything and to make all the changes, to calculate the impact, to find the proper team that will do it. Because this, at the beginning, we started with people who I found some of the things very difficult, and then at the end we work with Wind of Change and with a lawyer who worked for the company to make, and I was very involved as well. So this was probably 3 people working on it for the last year to finish everything. Then once we finished, there was a big waiting list, I guess 6 to 9 months to get through the audit. We had online audit with a lady from BILAB. She was from Tirana, I think, at the time. And this is it.
It's impressive.
Actually, after the audit, we had to provide some additional information. But mostly it was things that we had stated and we had to prove.
Yes. So that's why tracking the processes and having everything in place in terms of documentation to prove is a very important part of the journey. And I would say I'll label it this way. We have experience
working with foods. Food is very regulated, so we have a lot of people in the company working with different kind of certifications and regulations. So we have a team that can do it. I guess in the technological sector, for example, it will be more difficult because they don't have this experience. And with in working in a regulated sector, we have more experience.
It's much easier. What a commitment! I would say wholehearted commitment, which is really inspirational. And it's changed for Harmonica since you came.
What changed?
Yes.
I cannot really tell if there is some on the business side, if there is in Bulgaria there is not a community, a B Corp community still. So we are one of the first 3 companies. We are working now with Devin. We have meetings, regular meetings to discuss different subjects, which is nice. And I hope our companies will join us. I have been invited to many forums and events to speak, as B Corp apparently is interesting, especially for the last time I went to the Forbes ESG forum. We use it in our marketing now. We start to put it on the packaging. I think it's still quite unknown here, so it's difficult to really give you an answer on this and to measure the impact that B Corp has had on Harmonica. But once again, for me, it is important as a way to preserve the values and to preserve and to try to stick to them through the different crises. And the last years have been very challenging for the food business in general.
Yes, and congratulations, because you're leading the way. And obviously, you being invited to speak to so many forums is a proof itself about the impact you have. So thank you so much for gifting your time to our little community. And we hope to, as a self-organizing and naturally evolving ecosystem, to attract the B Corps as well, because you lead the way, and to inspire more and grow this in the southeastern region of Europe. And
this is what I'm saying everyone, that I'm ready to share our experience and help. I hope some people will call, and maybe we can help them go through the impact assessment. Yes,
that would be really, really valuable. And I'm sure Irina has more questions to ask. Thanks so much, Lubo.
Thank you.
I hand over to her.
So thank you, Lubo. I join Eli for saying you congratulations as a Bulgarian also person who is consuming and a big fan of your business growth and products. And you were mentioning a lot of milestones actually during your development, proving and certifying for a B Corp. You mentioned regulations and even carbon measurements going ahead. And still, what are the next key milestones if we go from now to the future? Is this something among of what you mentioned, or you would like to share some other ideas, and how do you sustain the sustainability further?
We are far from sustainable. In the food business, it's not easy to be very clean. We use fossil fuels for our trucks. We use plastics for the packaging. So there is a lot of work. There is really, really a lot to do.
Yeah.
Our next challenges would be to one thing is on the agricultural side. We really want to go to the next level. From organic is now the mandatory minimum for us, but we now are experimenting with farmers who do more. For example, no-till organic and things that support biodiversity much more. It's still very early stage, so I cannot really share a success story yet, but one
you
of
are on the journey to get to
So agriculture is one of the focus. Sorry?
What is this next level with towards?
One is on the farming side. We have we can work much more with farmers who are ready to experiment and try and work better for the environment. The other side is to work more on the packaging, because, and this is something that we're very dependent on the politics in the state, and also on the production on the big companies, because if a company like Unilever or Nestle decide to go in this direction, then it will be much more easy for us. We are quite small to be able to change. So our goal will be to try and push these companies to go and make better choices.
Yeah, so you're already in touch with Devin. They are a big company, so it's
Yes.
about regulations and impact on the government.
We are doing a lot. We are in the now in most of the associations of the food and drinks sector, and I think things will change quite fast.
Great. So you are connected for good and to collaborate. And another question is, what is that one single advice you would like to give to some kind of organizations, perhaps the ones that are about to grow further, as you as a best example?
One single advice.
To become a B Corp certified. Sorry, it was the next part of the question. Yeah.
I think I guess I will repeat myself, but thinking of a B Corp as a tool that can make your business better, and not as a tool to be more successful in the business. I mean, I don't think if you think of a B Corp as something that the marketing department has to do and create so that we can show it and use it, I don't think this is a successful approach. I would prefer if it's the whole company is involved, and it's something that will make your business better. So
to be authentic and to prove it, because you mentioned it's just to legitimate who you are and that you are keeping those high standards and doing the business for good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So let's go further. Thank you for everything set up to that. We will have a little Q&A session for everyone to address the questions. And the next speaker is Maggie Maleva, who Eli presented in the beginning. I'm honored to ask her and to hand over about Wind of Change organization and how you can support our journey to be a force for good through Wind of Change.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me. So I am the wife of Lubo that just spoke. So basically, ever since Harmonica existed, we have been trying to measure our impact on the world. And we've always been looking for someone to help us do that. We were a little bit late with the B Corp certification. We always wished we had measured our emissions earlier, but there was always so much work and not so many people we could ask for advice on how to do this. So that's how the idea of Wind of Change was born. And Wind of Change is a company of, we're about 10 shareholders, and Wind of Change is helping businesses on their journey to be more responsible. So we can do a few things. We're growing and we're developing. Obviously, we can help people with advice on B Corp because we know the way with Harmonica. And also we can measure emissions, because we believe this is if anyone wants to start any change in their company, they really need to know how much emissions they emit and where they come from. So we can do that, and we can also make a workshop that explains the problem of climate change. So this is the climate fresk, and we use the climate fresk to go into different companies to explain what is the problem of climate change, and hopefully we can encourage them to make steps and actions to minimize their impact. So this is Wind of Change. I promise not to talk too much. If anyone is interested in what we do, here is the information, and you are welcome to get in touch with me anytime.
Thank you so much, Maggie, for presenting your company. And we had a Climate Fresk event last year for our little community. So hopefully we can do more if there is interest, and spread the knowledge, because change starts with awareness. So thank you so much again to Nico, Lubo, and Maggie. And if you have questions now, please ask what you're curious about. We're here to answer. And mainly Lubo, Nico, and Maggie.
Thank you so much, Maggie. Yes, and we also encourage you to experience the Climate Fresk workshop, because it gives holistic perception about our current environmental problems. And there was one question, if I may open the Q&A session in the beginning of the chat, that do we support companies to become B Corps? And in a way, Maggie mentioned as well, this is part of what you can do with her organization. But let's Ellie perhaps reply on this question.
Well, thank you, Irina. What we're trying to do with the community, as I mentioned, this is a self-organized ecosystem. We all do this from the heart. That's why it's a community. And we are trying to build this capacity for organizations to be supported. So we see this as partnerships, like partnerships with Wind of Change, partnership with Build Up Europe, because at the end of the day, we have one common goal: to inspire and support businesses to be a force for good. That's why please spread the word. People who are purposeful, purpose-led leaders, organizations, entrepreneurs who are purpose-led, purpose-curious, let them come in the community, because there are more events coming. And these events naturally will be directed from you based on your interests and what you're curious about. This is how we built the program for this year for our community, based on what people from the community wanted. And maybe here is a good moment, while you're thinking about the questions, for me to mention that the next event we are planning, which will be again online, it will be on the 13th of July, and it will be more focused on food. So we named it Sustainability for Impact in Agri-Food. So it will be as a panel, and we'll give you more information about the participants. And then we're planning, as I mentioned at the beginning, that the GoodSouth community is the first hub in Bulgaria for the Inner Development Goals, which is another growing community initiative, as they use the word, that is helping creating the inner capacity in the organizations to become a force for good. So as we see, there are two aspects. There's the planet aspect and there's the people aspect. And they both go hand in hand. It's about balancing people, planet, and profit. So the IDGs, the Inner Development Goals, cover the people aspect and creating inner capacity within these competences, these skills, these qualities. So we're going to introduce and speak more about this on the event. And we're planning to have more regular events based on the groups of interest relating to environment, relating to inner capacity. So there are lots of talks, lots of things happening in the air, including with Nico from B-Lab. And just watch the space because more is coming. So that on the side of community. We're happy to hear more questions, or maybe these questions come later. You can send emails. Maybe Lou, if you can share as well our emails of the GoodSouth community. Launch Labs have a question. Elena, yeah. Go ahead, Elena.
Using the raise hand option in Zoom. I wasn't sure if we could ask in-person questions or I should put them in the chat, but I'm using the chance that you're giving me the word, and I'll thank first Nico and Lubo and Maggie in the order they presented, not the order of importance, because all three of them do really amazing things. And my question, actually I have two questions, if I may. And one of them is, does anyone of you have experience with very small organizations, very small companies, small teams, and their B Corp certification process? Because we looked into it, and our kind of preliminary feeling was we'll never get qualified for a B Corp because we're just so small, and some of the criteria are so skewed. Like, for example, we are a female-only team for the time being. So anyways, we just kind of figured out certified ourselves as impossible to get the B Corp. So that's one question. And the second one is, if you guys have help, and this is a project that I had the opportunity to share with Maggie very briefly. We're currently working on a food tech, agri-tech accelerator here in Bulgaria. And it has a very strong sustainability angle. We're pushing for that. But of course, you know, investors whom we invited to invest in the startups, they are evaluating them purely with the classical KPIs, as how scalable they are, etc. So do you have any ideas or how you can help us really, I don't know, just pass on the message that times are changing and the KPIs are changing? So these are the two questions.
I think Nico should answer the first one.
I think
Small teams.
I'm happy to. Although maybe you mentioned Maggie, if she's working with other organizations as well, but yeah. So my job at B-Lab is to support companies, not at the consultancy level, but maybe just mainly with the B impact assessment and the B Corp process. And there is a very wide variety of companies in the B Corp community, but the vast majority of them are small or very small, actually, even though the big ones are the ones making the headlines. But I think 96% of the community are companies below 5 million euros in revenues or something like that. So what I would suggest, and you know, what I try, and we run these regular B impact assessment webinars open to the public. Certification is the cherry on the top. But what I would suggest to any small organization is just to take Google Calendar and schedule 1 hour a month or 2 hours a month with your team. Set it recurring so that you don't forget about scheduling from one month to another, and just spend time on this assessment. Because when you spend 1 hour on the assessment, which is, again, for those of you who haven't used it, is an online questionnaire. In 1 hour, you will get 10 ideas of things that you could do better. And maybe out of those 10 ideas, 7 you can't do right now because you don't have the resources, or you're not able to prioritize that because you're focusing on something else in the business. But those 3 ideas, if you put them into action, and sometimes, as Lubo said before, it will be as simple as putting something on paper, making an employee handbook, for instance. You know, we give onboarding to employees, but we never had a handbook on paper that says everything about how this organization works. And it's those small things that compounded over time and month by month in you know, maybe 1 year, 2 years time, B Corp certification will look like something much more attainable. But I would say the thing is to a bit also echoing what Lubo said about not making it about marketing, but forget about the certification for a bit and just play around with the tool, which will give you the right questions and the difficult conversations sometimes with your co-founders or your colleagues. So yeah, and then about investors, and happy for anyone else who wants to chip in. The good thing that we have seen with startups is that just going through the B Corp process gives you, or if you intend to certify, because you have to collect so much data, you just start to know your business much better. So you know, on different parts of the assessment, you are asked for instance, what percentage of your revenue comes from helping purpose-driven organizations? Imagine if you're a consultancy. So you need to take KPIs for pretty much everything to go through a B Corp process. So especially thinking of investors and a due diligence process, if they are to invest and go through, it will make it actually faster because you will have a much better overview of your own startup. But I agree that, of course, other kind of KPIs need to be brought to the surface and need to be prioritized. I agree that's still an ongoing challenge, but just going through the B impact assessment will give you much better overview of everything that's happening in the business.
That's a very good advice, actually, because before becoming a B Corp, we had this book by Patagonia called The Responsible Company, which basically had checklists on most subjects. And we would use it as the B impact assessment without the certification. And the certification really is the cherry on the top. I totally agree with this. But the most useful part of the B Corp is the assessment, that where you can make small changes month by month. And on the investors, I am absolutely sure that by regulation and by business logic, they will become more and more interested in the ESG, as they call it now, a part of the business, because this is a huge business risk. Not caring about the challenges ahead is a huge business risk, and if they only look at the financial part of the business, I don't think they know what's happening. So I don't think they're good investors.
Elena, how do you feel about that? Does it answer your questions?
Yeah, I think it's a good start. Specifically, the first part. On the second, if I may, I'll reach out to Maggie and Lubo. We've already opened a channel with Maggie, and pick their brains on a few more ideas how we can, really work with this community of startups, but also big corporations and investors that we've put together, and how we can make them really look more into the sustainable angle, so that we respect the time of everyone. And this meeting is, spilling after the agreed.
Great for connecting each other and further collaboration. We wish you really luck, and we will support you, of course. And there is 2 more questions from Leontine. And I think Ellie rather replied about how to raise the awareness in your region. You've learned from Nico, and we just opened the space to share more. and also as coaches to support the value development through IDGs. And this is something that really consists and is the body of the journey for becoming, to prove your authenticity. So yeah, I think there are no more questions in the chat. So I hand over to Ellie.
Yeah, just we're already finished this event. I feel just wanted to share our contacts. If you have more questions, of course, you can write directly to Lubo or to Maggie or to us. We will definitely inform you about our coming events, seeing the participants. We have you in our email list. I want to express my gratitude for you coming to our event, sharing your questions, sharing your energy most of all. I feel like we're making the first little steps to a better future, and hope to see you again soon. And thank you so much for your time. Thank you especially to Lubo again, to Nico, and to Maggie to share their inspirational words and stories. You take care. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Everyone.
See you again very soon.
Bye.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.